top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
Well, he means it. That's no secret. Mitch McConnell wants President Obama to fail. Over the past 3 years, we've watched Republicans put partisan politics ahead of the American people. Look at the number of filibusters. And the proof is in the pudding. Record number of filibusters, no jobs planned, and a tax proposal that helps millionaires at the expense of the middle class. There's a new book out. The New Deal confirms what we've known all along. McConnell is leading the charge against President Obama. Vice President Joe Biden tells author Michael Grunwald that early on, several Republican senators told Biden not to expect any cooperation on major votes. The way it was characterized to me was, for the next 2 years, we can't let you succeed in anything. That's our ticket to coming back. Former Senators Bob Bennett of Utah and Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, both retired, have both confirmed that they had these conversations with Senator Biden or Vice President Biden at the time. Former Senator George Voinovich of Ohio tells Grunwald McConnell ordered his troops to oppose everything President Obama proposed. If he was for it, we had to be against it. Explains a lot. Let's bring in our panel tonight. Ari Melber, Nation Magazine, also Kelly Goff of the Root.com, and Republican strategist Michael Maslansky, author of the book, The Language of Trust. Michael, welcome to the program. Good to have you here the first time. What do we make of this? I mean, there's an author out there that has gone out and spoken with some former senators that said that they were told directly by McConnell, we're not doing business. How do you defend that?
Well, I'm not going to defend it. I mean, any more than Democrats should come out and defend Harry Reid for getting up and talking about how Mitt Romney hasn't paid any taxes without any proof. I mean, I think it's another example of the political debate in this country getting to the point where there's no accountability for certain things. If it's true, it's not something that we should defend. But I do think that we can go back to the end of 2008, 2009, and remember where we were. Obama was a new president. He had big majorities in both houses. He promised a bipartisan approach to the world. He came in with a very liberal agenda. And whether McConnell set out to do this or not, he was going to protect the Republican policy principles. And so the outcome was going to be the same, whether he set out to do it for purely political purposes or for policy reasons when all is said and done.
So in a sense, you're defending the record number of filibusters then. I mean, if it's for policy purposes. But the point was here is that this journalist is pointing out through two senators that they were said, stop Obama at all costs. This is how we're going to come back in 2008. Ari?
Look, Michael says if it's true, and you're in the School of Communication, so you've got a neat trick there. We know that it's true because, as you said, Ed, we have a record number of filibusters. There was about an average of one filibuster a year through most of the history of the Senate when that was on the table. And under the first 2 years of Obama's administration, there was a record 132 filibuster votes, thousands more that never even reached a cloture vote. So we do know from the facts, that this has been the most recalcitrant Congress in history. And what that means for people at home, a lot of the audience understands a filibuster deals with a supermajority. What it means is you have things like the Jobs Act that got a majority of votes, but because it was blocked by a filibuster, you never had that majority pass the thing.
You never had the 60 votes.
Right.
Exactly.
And with all due respect, there's a little bit of a false equivalency there to invoke Harry Reid potentially floating a rumor about a campaign and members of the Senate and Congress actively saying we are going to stop getting anything done in the name of politics, people whose salaries we are paying. And let's just be clear, this book, while what they did is actually very bad news for the president in terms of getting some of the things accomplished that he wanted to, it's very good news for his reelection campaign. And here's why. Because every poll that Gallup has taken since President Obama was sworn into office has shown one thing: a lack of trust in Congress. It has been an all-time low, a two-decade low, where Americans have blamed Congress for the Jobs Act not getting passed, Congress for the economy. Meanwhile, President Obama has not faced the same level of scrutiny. Poll after poll after poll has shown.
Look,
and you're a pollster, so you know that.
I think there's two things that I would challenge there. First of all, everybody puts politics over policy. It happens on the left and it happens on the right. And to suggest that it's not happening on both sides is to be ignorant of actually what's going on.
Well, when Democratic senators come out and say that the left has said we don't want to get anything done, then we can talk about that.
It's bad. It shouldn't be defended.
Republican senators have come out and said that was their marching orders.
Wait, but at the end of the day, the Republicans followed this policy. They filibustered. Certain things didn't get passed. Why? because the American people didn't support it. And you know how we know that? Because in 2010, there was a massive shift to the right, 2 years after after those policies happened, right? So the American people had the opportunity to speak, to either say they want more of what the Republicans are doing, or they want more of what Obama's doing. Guess what they chose?
President Obama wasn't up for re-election.
Well, he was.
I mean, to say,
he
you
was.
can't say that
The filibuster took place in 9 and 10. I mean, there was nothing. There was only a couple of Republicans that voted with the stimulus package to start with. They were all against health care. Had to go reconciliation for the health care package.
Right. So
the fact is, but their strategy was to stop everything. And so where does that leave the Republican Party right now in this campaign season, Kelly?
But the other thing I would challenge, too, is to say that they spoke loudly about it was a referendum on his administration, and yet you're conceding the point that things weren't getting done because Congress was actively working against him to make sure things weren't getting done.
Yes, and
so
apparently
it's not entirely
the
fair
American people
to say
said
that,
they want
that
more
his
of
administration,
that.
they want more of stuff not getting
They wanted more obstruction? They wanted the obstruction?
Apparently, because they voted to support it. If they didn't want that to happen, they had every opportunity. Well, wait, come on. They had every opportunity to shift Congress in favor of the Democrats, right? Did that happen? It didn't happen because the American people basically spoke and said that they weren't upset with the lack of things getting done. And the bottom line is that the policies that they stopped, they were liberal policies that were out of step with the American public. They were about green jobs instead of good energy. It was about health care reform and a very liberal approach to health care reform.
Can I just
it was about education where there's a huge divide.
Can I get a
between
quick turn? And
Republicans and
you're talking about the agenda. Let's talk about the agenda. Among items that were filibustered, the Jobs Act, the 9/11 health care bill, Pentagon spending, collective bargaining for emergency workers, the Senior Citizen Relief Act, the Paycheck Fairness Act, and offshoring, the Disclose Act. Several of those have supermajority support among public opinion. You're putting forward a theory. Your theory is that our democracy works really well and represents the public. I have a different theory, and that is that you have items that are very popular, from supporting our troops to supporting jobs to supporting public disclosure and campaign spending, and they're being blocked in Congress because democracy is not working. I think that's the difference of opinion.
Let's turn to this campaign right now. We got 88 days to go. The president running against a do-nothing Congress. How does it work?
Well, it works well for him because a lot of, especially hearing this book, I think, is like handing him, the Obama campaign, a gift.
And what should Romney do with this information? I mean, is this
and say everyone should be going to the Hill and trying to work together? That's what he should say. But the reality is, I mean, this is...
Look, I think we've just tested a whole series of ads on talking about working together. The fact is that that ship has sailed. Obama, I think largely thanks to Obama, the American public doesn't believe that line, whether it comes from Democrats or Republicans anymore.
You think he hasn't worked with them?
Well, I think on both sides, there's been a real lack of desire to reach across the aisle. I also think, just as a strategy from Romney's perspective, if I'm in his camp, look, I think from the Obama perspective, running against Congress is a great idea. From Romney's perspective, this is a clash of two wildly different philosophies about government and governing, and that his campaign has to be about those different
tax
philosophies.
cuts to the rich, extending those for the wealthy. That's where Romney is, and that does not poll well at all.
Of course, when it's conveyed that way.
Well, it's fact.
When it's talking about putting, then why isn't Obama polling at over 50% consistently?
Well,
anywhere?
also there's also a clash between the philosophy of universal health care, which was Romney's philosophy about 6 years ago, and the philosophy of Romney today. I mean, the biggest clash is between the Romney that was and the Romney that is.
Great discussion. Ari Melber, Kelly Goff, and Michael Maslansky. Great to have you with us on